Do you love the Kuvanukor? Well, if you do, you're gonna be loving the Tenet Cycron. But if you're the kind of player that just builds these weapons as primers, well, this is not exactly the place for you. Hey guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're gonna be rediving deeper into the Tenet Cycron. As per the usual, I'm gonna have an introductory level setup, as well as an endgame setup. That said though, please bear in mind that my builds and guides usually take a more no-player friendly tone, simply because I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So in case you're a veteran and you already know most of this stuff, please bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Tenet Cycron. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped. And for that, just a couple of our regular free shots. The Tenet Cycron is basically the Cycron with the benefit of a progenitor. And your first question should be, hey, what progenitor am I choosing for the Tenet Cycron? And it's gonna really depend, but here's the thing. If you got secondary encumber, you don't need to worry about it all that much. My recommendation to you fantastic people, go for heat. As for the functionality of the weapon, this is a limited range beam weapon, and the limited range is not all that limited, it's actually quite long. 28 meters by default, but not only are you getting 28 meters by default, you're also getting chaining to 2 additional targets. They need to be within 7 meters of the initial target. You are getting some damage drop off, however. The initial beam will be doing 100% of the damage, but the chain's only 60% of the damage, so bear that one in mind. Now you notice something? Well, take a look at my ammo and stuff. This is one of those fantastic self-recharge weapons, which means you'll never have to worry about going completely bone dry on ammo. However, there might be situations where you want to fire your gun and you're like, oh, it's stopped firing. If you keep your trigger finger pressed down like so, it will just kind of squirt pathetically at your enemy. So simply stop firing and get yourself that fantastic recharge because it is awfully quick. That's pretty much it for base functionality of the weapon. Let's have a closer look at stats to see exactly what we're dealing with. Mod capacity, this one is gonna be 80 out of 80, but what? What the hell, 80 out of 80? This is a Tenet weapon, and just like Kuva weapons, for example, you need to format 5 times to get the most amount of mastery points that you can out of this one. Formatting it will grant you 2 additional mod capacity, and if you take into account that fantastic auto-king catalyst, you're gonna be doubling that mod capacity. That's how you get to 80 out of 80. Do you actually need to format the weapon 5 times to build it? No, 2, 3 will be more than plenty, but again, you do want those fantastic mastery points. Accuracy on this one doesn't really matter, it's pinpoint accurate and it has no recoil whatsoever, so you shouldn't really care. Fire rate by default is pretty good at 12 magazine of 40, which would have been nice to be 60, then again, a whole lot of other things would have been nice. Noise alarming punch through of 1 meter by default, so it goes through the shield of the Rainier Riot shield. Dude. Reload on 0.5 seconds, that simply represents the delay between you stopping firing and the weapon starting to recharge the whole thing. Riven disposition of 2 out of 5. Does that mean it's worth going for Rivens? Disposition of 2 out of 5 is basically my most hated Riven disposition, simply because it's on the edge of worth it. It's kind of worth it if you're willing to roll a whole lot. It's kind of worth it if you really want to spend a whole lot on Rivens. From my point of view, I would probably stay clear of getting Rivens. But if you must, there you go. You can. Critical chance 20% as a base with a 1.8x critical multiplier. Is that fantastic? No, it's actually kind of below average if you think about it, but critical chance, critical damage is still worth it on the Tenet Cycron. If you're going for damage, if you're going for status, let's just get this out of the way. Dude, I just want to build a primer. Build a status chance, build a fire rate, use secondary encumber in the arcane slot, and that's the basis of your primer. Go and have fun. For the rest of us that want to deal damage though, status chance at 40% is actually pretty good, and the damage is gonna be impact and heat. Impact and heat? What the hell? An impact Tenet Cycron? That doesn't make any sense. Well, I did want to test one thing, how it works with hemorrhage, and the thing is, it does work with hemorrhage. You can get some slashes out of it. Is it actually worth it? No, but it is something you can do. Again, you can simply go for heat and get just more heat out of the weapon, since your damage is going to be coming from damage over time effects such as heat, and you want to stack it up as high as you can, as fast as you can, because you don't have a cap on heat procs. But before I get ahead of myself, let's have a look at a standard introductory level build. Damage with Hornet Strike, multi-shot with Battle Diffusion and Lethal Torrent, plus that fantastic fire rate, and you also got critical chance and critical damage through this, so creeping up the bullseye and sharpened bullets. Now let's back up a little bit when it comes to critical chance and critical damage. You got yourself Pistol Gambit with 120%. This is the standard critical chance mod. I urge you to try Creeping Bullseye. 200% is a whole lot more than 120%. I know that's stating the obvious, but still, Creeping Bullseye does have a disadvantage, minus 20% fire rate. This is a corrupted mod. Corrupted mods take away a little something, but give you a whole lot of something. And if you don't know how to farm corrupted mods, all you gotta do is bolt runs. Don't worry about it, I got your back. Link in the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on how to farm mods such as Creeping Bullseye. Trust me, you need to do them because there's a lot of weapon mods, a lot of Warframe mods that you will need for your quote-unquote optimal builds in Warframe. As for critical damage, sharpen of the bullet, 75% again bigger than 60% that you get from Target Cracker. This one, however, has a bit of a condition. It's on kill and while aiming. This is a fairly common effect in Warframe, so if you're more newer to the game, get used to this whole effect and go for sharpened bullets instead of Target Cracker. Your option slot is going to be Accelerated Isotope. You can plug into this one whatever you feel comfortable with. Let's say you don't have it, you haven't farmed it yet, you can go with Auger Pack with 90% damage. It basically does what Hornet Strike does, only significantly worse. I would recommend you farm Accelerated Isotope. You will need this one. It gives you an elemental combination, radiation by default, and 40% fire rate, completely annihilating the minus 20% from Creeping Bullseye. You can get it by farming Cullervin. And of course, we also got two 90 mods. We got ourselves Convulsion and Pathogen rounds, forming corrosive damage, which will be fantastic against Ferrite armor like the Corrupted Heavy Goons we're going to be testing against now. The level of our enemies will be level 100 because I believe for an introductory level build this should be plenty. Now let's see what the weapon can actually do. You can go for headshots, of course the beam will link however the hell it wants. And as you can see, my friends, it will definitely kill. It absolutely melts level 100 Corrupted Heavy Goons without any issue whatsoever. Look at that. In essence, if you got carried through getting yourself a brand new spanking Tenet weapon, and you got this one, you're in luck because you can go for the entirety of the star chart with a cheap introductory level build and essentially just melt everything that stands before you like so. Absolutely fantastic. This will conclude the new player portion of the guide. Now let's assume for a second that you're not exactly a new player and at your disposal you have everything that you need to make this one into a full-blown killer. Because let's be honest, you're tired of primers and there are plenty of other primers out there. You're looking at something along these lines. Now the base of the build is basically the same, however most of our damage is going to be coming through a whole lot of heat procs, which is why we have Prime Heated Charge. Now make no mistake, it does add a bit of flat heat damage, but the important part is the elemental priority or the proc priority or elemental weight, however you want to call it. Heat at number 1, which is awesome. You also got two 60/60 mods on this one, Jolt and Pistol Pestilence, forming corrosive. And you might say, hold on, if the point here is to get a whole lot of heat procs, with two fully maxed out 60/60s, you are encouraging a whole lot of corrosive procs. We don't need more than 10 corrosive procs. That's true, but here's the thing, you can't exactly use unranked Pistol Pestilence and Jolt, simply because you're also going to be turning around and biting yourself in the derriere by dropping a whole lot of status chance. So, for the time being, use fully maxed out 60/60 mods. And of course, we need to use a faction mod. Here's the thing, when it comes to damage over time builds, you gotta go for that blasted faction modifier because it double dips. If you don't know what I mean, I'm gonna link you a vid in the cards right now. It's about Hunter munitions, but essentially it goes through everything that you need to know when it comes to faction modifiers as well. So do check that one out. Galvanized Shot is mandatory. This one is going to be offering us all the flat damage that we need because we're going to be using the weapon not with Cascadia Flare, but instead Secondary Encumber. Now this is a arcane which is really powerful but doesn't see a whole lot of play because it needs a specific type of weapon for it to work at its best. On status effect, 24% chance to trigger a second random status effect. Flare is going to be a bit more upfront, it's going to be stacking up like that, but overall you're going to be getting more from Secondary Encumber, and this is what I recommend. Now, let's test the weapon on Corrupted Heavy Goons and, well, Corrupted Heavy Goons level 180 with the Steel Path modifiers on. Aim for the head, aim for the body, aim for whatever you want, and look at the absolute gore and destruction in front of you. You are absolutely melting 180 Corrupted Heavy Goons Steel Path modifiers on. You don't care. There's a whole lot of heat procs on these here puppies. Look at that. That's 69 heat procs on that target. Beautiful, fantastic, glorious. This is the kind of damage you can expect out of the Tenet Cycron if you build it for damage, more than plenty. There comes a point where they simply disappear off into nothingness. So my friends, here's the thing. If you want to build it for damage, there's plenty of damage to be had here. But I know what you're gonna say. Hold on there, Lazar. These guys are standing still in the simulacrum at a, I don't know, some reasons that don't really matter anymore. Let's check out some actual gameplay, shall we? Welcome to Demos. Now let's see what the Tenet Cycron can do against the Murmur. This is base level Steel Path, and I'm gonna try to mitigate what kind of impact Citrine has on my glorious damage. We are gonna be using Hurtful ability all the time, however, for survivability. Now, yoo-hoo, enemies, here I am. As you can see, even without it being fully stacked out, it's still fully capable of melting essentially everything that stands before you. The only problem that I face in actual gameplay is knowing when to stop firing, so I allow the weapon to actually recharge. Careful about those Colorvin, because you can't proc anything off of them. Not your arcanes, not your galvanized mods, essentially not anything. So it can be a little bit annoying. If I press my 1 on Citrine, I'm gonna be getting some slash on my targets, but more importantly, I'm gonna get that bonus chance of dropping orbs, health, and energy as well. Now, of course, as you can see, I am melting Steel Path at a base level without any issue whatsoever with the Cycron. However, considering how the weapon gets its damage on, that is by damage over time heat effects, it might be a bit problematic when it comes to Acolytes. If you want weapons that absolutely annihilate Acolytes, you should be looking towards that deal a whole lot of flat damage instead. However, the weapon is still capable of destroying an Acolyte. Let's get over here. So we have a clean spawn. Acolyte is here. Activate 4. Shoot the thing. Melted. Granted, that was with Citrine's 4 on the Acolyte, which is why I love Citrine. Well, one of the many reasons. If you guys are interested in Citrine in a full and detailed build guide, I got your back in the cards right now. But let's see what it can do without Citrine's 4. There's the Acolyte. This is without Citrine's 4. We're gonna dodge so we don't get the bubble destruction of death. So this is just with her 2. You can see the big difference here. Yes? And that's normal because, again, most of your damage are going to be coming from procs, and Acolytes can only have 4 per type. So therefore, I cannot super stack my heat on him to absolutely melt them. All I got is my flat damage and a little bit of damage over time, which isn't all that fantastic. I can still kill the Acolyte, as you can see, but it's taken a while. That's it. Acolyte hits the dust. Now let's draw some conclusions on the Tenet Cycron. Is the Tenet Cycron worth building and using in 2024? And I'm gonna go with definitely, if you understand a couple of its limitations. First of all, if you're looking for a primer, you might as well go for the Epitaph. It simply is better as a primer than the Tenet Cycron. If you're looking for damage, then this one will deliver with a pretty streamlined gameplay experience. However, I wouldn't really use it outside of base level Steel Path. This is nothing I would use in level cap, for example. If that's your cup of tea, link in the cards right now for a secondary weapon that will absolutely mow down even level cap. It is enjoyable, but when it comes to enjoyable and fun, you know what they say, it is subjective and entirely up to you. Let me see if I can catch that Acolyte. Come here. He's chasing me while I'm chasing him. Acolyte in town, we're gonna apply that crowd control, we're gonna hit the little big crystal thing, and it absolutely shreds and melts the Acolyte. But without it, well, you might be up a creek without a paddle. That's all for me. As always, my name has been Lazar. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, let me know in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to see any type of weapon build. For example, hey, I would like to see this weapon build, or that weapon build, and so on and so forth. If you like what you do, consider supporting us via Patreon. There's going to be a link in the upper right portion of the screen right about now. I'll catch you guys in the next one.